This week on Aussie JetSetter, we are in the gold mining capital of the world, home of the richest gold-bearing square mile of land on Earth. We are of course in Australia's Wild West, Outback capital of Kalgoorlie, and we are flying to the West Australian capital of Perth, on one of the most frequent intrastate routes in the state. To get there, we are flying across WA's Goldfields on Virgin Australia on their stalwart Boeing 737-800, an aircraft not frequently favoured by Qantas or Virgin for most of its regional WA services. So without further ado, come join me as we put Virgin Australia to the ultimate test, see what their onboard economy class experience is really like in 2025, how it may differ from its A320 regional product on a short-haul intrastate flight, while also showing you what you can do to significantly save on the cost of typically very expensive regional airfares in West Australia along the way. Hello, good morning and welcome to the amazing city of Kalgoorlie, Boulder, very much the gold capital of Australia, if not the world. Located some 590 kilometres east of Perth by road. Rather significant population here in Kalgoorlie, about 30,000 people, although it has peaked at a significantly higher population during the peak of the gold boom. Actually only really been here just overnight. Actually came up from Esperance yesterday. Actually flew to Esperance a couple of days ago, joined the parents there who are on a holiday, so had an amazing time in Esperance, down on the beautiful south coast of Western Australia. Spent a few days there. We actually drove the Esperance to Kalgoorlie highway all the way to Kalgoorlie yesterday. That was about a 4-hour drive. Really enjoyed it. One of the best drives you can do in Australia in my opinion. From the sea to the desert, basically really cool drive indeed. Anyway, been to Kalgoorlie many times before, driven, got the Prospector, flown a few times as well. I've flown on the QantasLink Fokker 100 out of here before, I think the 717 as well. That was before I had the channel, unfortunately. Have also flown Virgin Australia on the Airbus A320 and have also flown on the QantasLink Airbus A320, which I reviewed a couple years ago. So yeah, it's about 2 years or so since I last visited Kalgoorlie actually now. Anyway, it's going to be another exciting morning. We're going to be flying Virgin Australia on their stalwart Boeing 737-800 aircraft. Really was keen to try a more exciting aircraft on this route coming back, such as the Fokker 100, maybe the Airbus A319, maybe even the Air North Embraer E190 that, believe it or not, Air North operate for Qantas on a few occasional flights out of here. But yeah, unfortunately just couldn't work it with timing. Some of them were late flights in the day, didn't work with my schedule unfortunately. Anyway, no stress however. Good opportunity to try the 737-800 today. Haven't actually flown on a Boeing 737-800 with Virgin Australia for well over a year now. Last time I think I actually flew it was between the Gold Coast and Sydney. So probably about 15 months or so ago now. Have had a tendency to fly on the 737-700 and the A320, just not the standard 737-800. So it'll be a good opportunity to see how Virgin Australia go on their stalwart aircraft on a relatively short 1 hour or so flight back to Perth today. So without further ado, it is pretty busy at the Kalgoorlie airport. There's about 12 flights to Perth today, including 5 on Virgin, all jet flights, except for the 2 Nexus flights, one of which you can see behind me. So without further ado, let's see the plane arrive. It's only a few minutes away, and then yeah, we'll go into the terminal, get checked in, and come join me as we fly back to Perth today. Should be a fun flight. Before we head into the terminal building, let's have a look at the route information for flight VA1852, taking us largely in an east-southeasterly direction out over West Australia's Goldfields and Wheatbelt over to Perth today. Their flight time on this one is 1 hour and 10 minutes. We're going to do it in just 52 minutes, however, covering the great circle distance of 538 kilometres, levelling off at 32,000 feet. For your information, you'll find Kalgoorlie Airport located conveniently only about 5.6 kilometres from the city centre. Kalgoorlie Airport is currently the 25th busiest airport in Australia, or 6th busiest in West Australia, with an impressive 361,000 yearly passenger movements according to the latest statistics, which is quite impressive, all fueled by Kalgoorlie's gold mining industry. To put things in perspective, Kalgoorlie Airport is really quite a busy airport considering the modest size of Kalgoorlie population-wise these days of around 30,000 people. That That's literally 10 times the population of Kalgoorlie travel through this airport every year. More on the airport in a moment, but as you can see, it's a very busy Tuesday morning here at Kalgoorlie Airport with multiple flights to and from Perth arriving. As you can see right here from outside the airfield fence, we also got our incoming aircraft arriving now from Perth. So that's the beauty of many regional airports in West Australia. You can check in, drop your bags, and then have a wander outside and literally plane spot from outside up and close. Anyway, before I ride back to Perth today, we're flying on Victor Hotel Yankee Quebec Oscar, one of Virgin Australia's relatively newer Boeing 737-800 aircraft, just shy under 12 years of age at taking this flight, first delivered actually to Virgin Australia in June 2013. Looking at the remarks on this plane, it is technically actually a lease plane. It's actually briefly returned to its leaser in the Netherlands during the height of the pandemic before Virgin Australia reacquired it in April 2021. Anyway, back to Kalgoorlie Airport, the only regularly scheduled passenger flight these days is currently to the West Australian capital of Perth. Though this hasn't always necessarily been the case, Kalgoorlie Airport once had an interstate presence. Prior to May 2014, Qantas served Kalgoorlie with 2 weekly services to Adelaide. While the now defunct West Australia-based SkyWest Airlines, which is now absorbed into Virgin Australia Regional Airlines, actually used to operate Fokker 100 flights, its only interstate flight out of West Australia between Kalgoorlie and Melbourne. That was a 3 times weekly service between November 2007 and November 2008, though they briefly resumed the service again in February 2010. Moving forward to more recent years, there still has been a very odd few interstate flights, really just scheduled during the absolutely massive annual Diggers and Dealers Mining Conference that has seen direct flights to Sydney. While only really servicing one city these days, Kalgoorlie Airport really is spoilt for choice for airlines. Even more noticeably, must serve one of the most diverse range of aircraft type in Australia. For example, you got Qantas, QantasLink, Virgin Australia Regional Airlines, Alliance Airlines, and even Nexus Airlines operating on the route. And technically speaking, you can even throw in Air North if you consider they occasionally operate flights on behalf of QantasLink. So in a nutshell, Boeing 737-700s, 737-800s, Airbus A319s and A320s, Fokker 100s, Dash 8 Q400s, even Embraer E170s and E190s all service this airport to Perth. Anyway, on to check-in, all done the old-fashioned way here at Kalgoorlie Airport with staff counters, super quick and easy. However, of course, literally no one was there, through in a matter of moments. Even though it really does appear quite busy out there with all the aircraft outside, all seems to be one-way traffic these days, mining and other workers flying into Kalgoorlie, not necessarily flying out. With Kalgoorlie Airport servicing predominantly regular Australian jet passenger aircraft, no surprise it is a security controlled airport, so you do have to go through security screening just prior to boarding being announced. Apart from that, it is a really spacious airport with really great views of the tarmac outside from both inside and out. Also got a nice little single kiosk there as well, selling snacks, drinks and alcoholic beverages. And aside from that, go through security only about 10 or 15 minutes before boarding is finally called, because there's not much to do once you're inside the security area. And just like that, boarding is pretty well announced on time, looking like it's going to be a very quiet flight. As you expect, no aero bridges in Kalgoorlie, so it's about a short 20-30 metre walk out to the plane. On what promises to be a lovely, beautiful, warm, sunny morning for flying. And just like that, welcome aboard just one of Virgin Australia's 79-strong fleet of stalwart Boeing 737-800 aircraft. In total, there's 176 seats on these aircraft, including 8 at the front in business class with a pitch of 37 inches and a width of 19.5. At the front you also got rows of Economy X with extended leg room. Then out the back in the rest of the cabin you got regular economy class with a standard pitch of 30 inches and a width of 17. At your seat you'll find Virgin Australia's rather standard black leather seating, which comes with a very comfortable adjustable headrest. At your seat you've got a fold back tray table that also slightly extends. In the seat pocket you also got the in-flight literature, including the Safety Demo Card, air sickness bag and the in-flight buy on board menu. And what better time now to sit back, relax and enjoy as we roll forward from stand here at Kalgoorlie Airport, head out to the runway where we'll backtrack along, turn around, take off out of spectacular Kalgoorlie this morning with absolutely amazing views of the gold mining capital of the world, and of course even better the iconic world famous super pit. Then once firmly in the air, well and truly on our way to Perth, I'll go what you can expect on board with Virgin Australia, flying interstate on one of WA's busiest routes.
To find out the brake positions and other important safety information, anything larger than handheld will need to be put away. And if you lose your device in your seat, don't move the seat. Just sit tight and ask your crew for assistance. Finally, cabin crew, be seated for takeoff.
And just like that, after an absolutely spectacular takeoff out of the gold mining capital of the world, now well and truly on our way to cruising altitude of 32,000 feet. So as first order of business, let's have a look at the buy on board Virgin Australia menu. As you may be aware, on Virgin Australia in economy class, the only complimentary items these days are tea, coffee and water. Everything else is largely chargeable. Overall, a very generalised menu on Virgin Australia. Good range of snacks and drinks. If you really want anything more substantial, really is just toasties or sandwiches. Proper meals per se are only available on longer international flights and select longer domestic flights out of Perth. To be honest, don't really think Virgin Australia's buy on board menu is particularly affordable. Probably the most expensive buy on board menu in Australia in my opinion. Definitely a bit more expensive than JetSetter it seems. Anyway, onto the seat itself, you've got the adjustable headrest there, which is really good. One good thing that is complimentary, however, on Virgin Australia is the in-flight stream to your own device entertainment, which is available on the 737-800. Wi-Fi internet is also available if you're travelling in business class or a platinum velocity frequent flight, it's on the house. Otherwise, our 30-minute flight pass is $9.75. full flight pass is $14.95. Certainly not necessary on a 1 hour flight. Although I guess you could be tempted on a longer coast to coast flight. For $15, it's probably not too bad value. Back to the entertainment options itself, it's best described as adequate on Virgin Australia. Good overall range of movies, TV shows, children's content, and also the in-flight moving map. What I do like, however, is there is a short flight section with content curated for a shorter flight such as today. Top of that, you also got podcasts and other sorts of audio content. For me personally, I've always been a documentary person. Always found both Qantas and Virgin to be pretty light on in this regard. So yeah, usually find very limited stuff that I enjoy. Tend to download my own content through YouTube Premium. One thing I do particularly like through the stream to your own device entertainment system, however, is the in-flight moving map. Really accurate and gives out quite a lot of information. Aside from stream to your own device entertainment, as I alluded to before, another complimentary item is free tea, coffee and water. Being such a short morning flight, refrain from buying anything from the very expensive overpriced menu, just settle for a cup of coffee. Very much a standard fare, nothing too flashy, but with not too much sleep the night before, still very much appreciated. Anyway, with the flight progressing very quickly as we head west back towards Perth, let's now have a quick look at one of the onboard lavatories on the 737-800 aircraft. For your information, there is one at the front for the business class and two at the rear for economy. Once inside, practically very much what you'd expect for a 737 bathroom. Got everything you need, however, fairly compact, but yeah, neat, tidy, and yeah, good condition as well. Got all the basic amenities that you would need. Now back at my seat, you can see how incredibly quiet this flight is. Literally got the whole row to myself, including the row on the other side. So yeah, what is a relatively average seat pitch, actually very comfortable now because I've got the whole row to myself to stretch out. Probably only about 30 people I'd say on this whole flight. Certainly would have been a different story the inbound flight from Perth. Probably would have been full of miners and workers heading to Kalgoorlie for the start of their rosters. Aside from that, not too much more to report about today's flight. Overall, been a very much uneventful flight, but yeah, usually an uneventful flight is a good flight in my opinion. Very quick, fast and efficient. Very smooth day for flying as well. Having so few people on the flight is also making it quite enjoyable as well, so no real complaints. Anyway, what better time now to sit back, relax and enjoy our approach into Perth International Airport. Then once on the ground, I'll go with my final thoughts and feedback about today's Virgin Australia 737-800 experience between Kalgoorlie and Perth.
Welcome to Perth. The local time here is 9:38. We'll be getting you to the gate shortly. For everyone's safety, please keep your seatbelt fastened and the aisles and exits clear until the seatbelt sign has been switched off. Remember to take care when you open the lockers and make sure you have everything before you leave. We'll be leaving through the forward and the rear doors today. If you're leaving through the rear door, you'll have stairs to go down, so please mind your step as you exit, hold onto the handrails and remain on the outside of the markers on the tarmac. If you're not comfortable using stairs, please just stay seated and leave through the forward door when it's clear. I will be refueling, smoking, vaping or using e-cigarettes not allowed anywhere on the tarmac or in the terminal. And you can now take your devices off flight mode, but note that these can't be used on the tarmac. If you have an onboard connection here in Perth today, please check your itinerary to see which terminal you're leaving from. All the terminals that we fly here in Perth are just a short walk apart. If you don't have an onboard boarding pass, you'll need to pick up your bags before you check in for your next flight. And as always, our ground team are happy to help. On behalf of your crew today, we'd like to thank you for flying with Virgin Australia today. It's been a pleasure having you on board and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
And just like that, welcome back to beautiful, warm, sunny Perth, and cheers to another very successful regional weekend away here around the massive state of spectacular Western Australia. Done quite a few already this year. And before we wrap up things with my final thoughts and verdict on today's flight, let me just reflect on how I actually indeed managed to travel quite frequently around West Australia and keep those costs down for what otherwise is very exorbitantly priced airfares interstate within West Australia. So the trick, in my opinion, all comes down to using Qantas or Velocity points. You can really save a lot of money using them for economy reward seat redemptions. So long story short, always found regional interstate flights in West Australia to be at best uncompetitive in price and at times downright extortionate in terms of cost. Really, compared to flights of similar length over east, we really are paying above average. But on the flip side, I find that despite these really high costs of airfares, the availability of reward seat redemption seems to be consistently quite high, and that means due to the nature of the reward system setup, very highly priced airfares can be redeemed at disproportionately low amounts of points. For example, this flight was retailing at over $400 for the short one-way 1 hour flight, which is very expensive considering the flight was even that busy. Yeah, I only paid 8,000 points for this flight and about $70 in taxes. So in other words, my 8,000 points got me about $330 worth of value. Surely you can theoretically get much better value again when booking some international flights, particularly business class, even first class. In reality, however, these redemptions increasingly seem harder and harder to find. Yeah, with these regional flights in West Australia always having good availability, they are really good use of your points for economy class redemption standards. Really good way to save quite a significant amount of money when travelling regularly throughout Western Australia. Other good value redemptions I've had recently travelling within West Australia that saved me a lot of money include a recent trip to Kalgoorlie, which was 8,000 points one way with Qantas Link, with a cash airfare retailing at over $300 one way. Even better value was a recent trip to Port Hedland, where I flew up on Virgin Australia for 12,000 points as a substitute for a cash fare of over $500. Return on Qantas was also 12,000 points in substitute of a cash airfare price of over a staggering $600. So my advice is, if you're a West Australian or anyone who's keen to travel and explore occasionally around our beautiful state of West Australia, just keep some points aside. Doesn't have to be a massive balance. Yeah, modest balance really will just help you explore our state without breaking the bank. And if you do have a considerable frequent flyer points balance with either Virgin and or Qantas, maybe just keeping 20 or 30,000 points aside regularly will just help you save a lot of money for the purpose of travelling intrastate in West Australia. Even if you don't have a huge balance, very infrequent flyer, the good news is it's easier than you might think to get 8,000 points to do a flight such as this. And the best way to build up a modest but nonetheless tangible frequent flyer points balance, stopping short of signing up for credit cards, is through linking your Flybuys account with Velocity Frequent Flyer or Woolworths Rewards with Qantas Frequent Flyer. Then download the respective supermarket apps and start boosting the offers that they give you. Then you can start earning not just dozens of points on your daily shopping, but hundreds if not thousands of points, which then quickly build over time when converted to Velocity or Qantas Frequent Flyer. So my opinion is to get out there, earn those points, really opens up opportunities to bring down the cost barrier of exploring our beautiful regional parts of the country. Anyway, for now let's head over towards Airport Central Station where we'll wrap up today's flight review. And just like that folks, welcome back to beautiful, warm, sunny Perth. And how I describe that flight with Virgin Australia on their stalwart Boeing 737-800 back over to Perth today. Well, it's very uneventful, very routine, but yeah, it was surprisingly quite comfortable and yeah, pretty pleasant flight overall. Whole experience today, really hard to complain, not too much wrong about the Virgin Australia experience these days. Even if it isn't the most exciting experience these days in 2025, Virgin Australia, they got me from A to B, the flight left on time, we arrived back into Perth slightly early, and yeah, what was really great about this flight was just how empty it was. Must have only been about 30-40 passengers on the flight of 180 people. So hard to complain whatsoever. Literally had the whole row to myself, and yes, several rows around me were also free. Literally the whole back half of the plane was pretty well all but empty. So overall, everything was pretty good about the flight. The ground handling was good in Kalgoorlie. Only got to the airport about an hour before, and it was plenty of time to still film the introduction, do a bit of plane spotting. And yeah, check in my bag only took a few minutes. Security was pretty easy as well in Kalgoorlie. And yeah, the crew on board were really good today. Obviously they didn't have too much work to do, but yeah, still got a tea and coffee service which is complimentary, so hard to complain. Do think the Virgin Australia menu is very overpriced, especially compared to Jetstar. So that's one criticism of Virgin in my opinion. But yeah, the in-flight entertainment, even on a really short flight, it worked really well, even on my laptop as well. So that's certainly a good system to have options for shorter flights like today as well. So that's good to see. And yeah, the seat itself is pretty comfortable. The seat pitch isn't great, only about 30-31 inches. So yeah, a bit tight, especially on the coast-to-coast flights in my opinion. But yeah, it was certainly comfortable enough today for the 1 hour flight. If I was to resort to nitpicking, perhaps also one other criticism about today's flight was the state of the windows. They really seem to be quite dirty, quite fogged up, and they're quite unpleasant to look through. Actually made filming quite difficult indeed, especially trying to focus the camera and everything like that. So yeah, surely it's not hard to keep the windows clean, especially if you're paying for a window seat. You expect to get a good view outside in my opinion. But apart from that, being on a flight with only about 30 people on it, having a whole row to yourself, always going to be a good overall flight in my opinion. So yeah, that's pretty well the extent of my remarks about the Virgin Australia experience today. Definitely was a good rewards redemption for shy under 8,000 points. Brought the price down from $370 to just the $70 in tax. So good redemption on that one. But yeah, if you have enjoyed this flight review, really appreciate it. If you would, give it a like, leave your comments down below, maybe share amongst your family and friends. And of course, if you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. Click that bell and notification button on so you won't miss many more cool flight reviews from around West Australia, interstate around Australia, and of course, globally around the world. Just got back from a trip which involved the United States of America, so plenty of cool domestic and international flight reviews coming from that as well. But in the meantime, you may also wish to visit my website, aussiejetsetter.com.au, for latest flight reviews, industry news, destination guides, frequent flyer hacks and more. Maybe even check out my Instagram page, catch up with what I'm doing around the world in real time. Even got a Discord server these days for fans and community of the channel to discuss all things aviation and travel. So be sure to jump on there to discuss all your favourite topics about aviation with me and fellow other enthusiasts and YouTubers. But from here at Perth International Airport, which is adjacent to T1 Domestic, thanks so much again for tuning in to our Virgin Australia flight review back over to Perth today. But until next one, safe travels wherever that might take you.